Bobby, for a salary cap strapped team that we're talking about the future of a lot of these players, I was wondering, what do you hear that the team thinks of Kelvin Joseph's rookie year? Because Anthony Brown is another one of those guys that if you needed to, there's a way to save money.
I think that there were times last year, especially in the first half of the season, where Kelvin Joseph was getting a little frustrated with, I mean, obviously you just kind of look around him. Like, everybody picked around him, Micah Parsons, Oso Digizua, Chauncey Golston when he was healthy. They were all getting their crack, and they were all getting a chance to contribute to this defense, and I think that it was a little bit frustrating for him at times that he wasn't getting those sorts of opportunities. Well, you know, when Jordan Lewis went down with COVID and he played pretty well, Kelvin Joseph did, then I think that you know, I think that was a big confidence boost for him, and I think it was a big trust boost for the Cowboys. Like, they were having to preach a lot of patience with him, I think, in the first half of the season, and, like, dude, come on, your time's going to come here, but, you know, I think there were some, you know, growing pains there that they were dealing with, some maturation and things like that, and I think the second half of the season gave them some good hope for what he can do, and I know that Dan Quinn is a fan of who he can be as a player, and so, yeah, I mean, I think that, look, you spent, you know, 2 of your top 100 picks on corners, and you've already got Trayvon Diggs back there. Somebody's got to go. You know, Jordan Lewis or Anthony Brown, it feels like somebody needs to go to free up some money, and the biggest savings there, obviously, is Anthony Brown. I think if they didn't have the corners, or, you know, if they weren't so tight on the cap, they'd be happy to keep Anthony Brown, even though he would present some savings. But I think just given the numbers at the cornerback position, it feels like, okay, let's go ahead and usher in the Kelvin Joseph era here next year.
All right, Beefmaster. I'm seeing that Michael Gallup's going to undergo his surgery tomorrow for his torn ACL, and that's about 5 weeks after it happened. So now I'm just trying to do timeline math in my head. Does waiting to this point, first of all, was there a reason we waited to this point? And second of all, does that make it more likely that a market for him is not all that impressive?
I think that a market wasn't going to be all that impressive for him to begin with, just because even though, you know, when he was healthy, he was out there contributing, I still think it was a little bit of a disappointment when he was out there. He was okay, but I don't think he made the most of his, you know, contract year opportunities. And so the injury factoring into that certainly, I think, adds another dimension to it. You know, maybe Gallup can come back on the cheap the way, you know, Terrence Williams did a few years back. Not that Terrence Williams, he's, you know, the same receiver as Terrence Williams, but how Terrence Williams signed a multi-year deal on the cheap, or it may be a case where Gallup just says, all right, let's, you know, reload for 1 more year. Let's sign a 1-year deal and revisit this. And so it'll be interesting to see how they do that. I don't know about the delay or why that is the case. It's funny. I was talking to somebody, one of the players recently, and they mentioned how Jabril Cox had been, like, his surgery for his ACL didn't happen right away, and they didn't know that. And they had seen him kind of walking around and thought, like, oh, he's great. And then the next thing they knew, he was on crutches like 2 weeks after, and they're like, what happened to you? And he's like, well, I finally had the surgery. And so how it's like the surgery was more of, you know, an issue for him being able to get around than the actual ACL tear was. And so I don't know why they've delayed it this long. But I mean, that sounds like same sort of thing happened a little bit with Jabril Cox during the year too.
Bobby, you were, you know, the guys came back from the Senior Bowl and stuff like that. We had the draft show over there, and we were kind of talking about guys that we really, really liked. Have you heard any whispers of anything from any players that, you know, from the front office or scouts or anybody you had a chance to visit with that maybe gave you a little insight of some guys that they kind of liked, maybe 1 or 2 guys?
I'll tell you what, I mean, talking about Michael Gallup there, and, you know, we've talked about Coop's future and things like that, I'm getting a distinct impression that it sounds like this team's doing their homework on, you know, day 2 receivers, day 2 or 3. And so, you know, I think that they were fans of what, you know, Christian Watson, the North Dakota State receiver, did. He's probably a second, third round pick. I think Todd McShay had him in his top 5 receivers recently. Mm-hmm. You know, I think Jalen Tolbert had an impressive week from South Alabama. He's, again, another guy who's probably like a second-round receiver. I think that he, you know, caught the attention of some folks. And so yeah, I think that receiver is definitely an area where they're looking at. Another guy I know that they were impressed with and how he performed, though, was Trevor Penning, the Northern Iowa tackle. You heard good things from everybody at the Senior Bowl about Jermaine Johnson, the Florida State edge rusher. So, but I was struck by just having some conversations with folks and some people who have talked with Cowboys and things like that, that it was impressed upon me that they were definitely looking into some of these potential day 2 receiving options, which I thought was interesting.